They say kindness is a virtue, but what happens when that kindness is used as a weapon? This is the story of a man who gave everything to someone he barely knew, and how that single act of generosity unraveled his life. In a quiet neighborhood where trust once came easy, a single father's desire to rebuild would be his biggest mistake, and her perfect opportunity. It had been just over a year since Adam lost his wife, and nothing about life felt normal anymore. Every morning began with the same routine: coffee brewing before dawn, lunchbox prep for his 8-year-old daughter Lily, and a few moments of quiet at the dining table, staring at the empty seat where his wife used to sit. The silence in the house was no longer peaceful. It was heavy, like grief that never quite let go. Adam was doing his best. He had taken a part-time job as a mechanic to be around for Lily after school. He picked up freelance work on the weekends, often working late into the night while she slept. The bills were barely getting paid, but they were getting paid. That was enough for now. The last thing he needed was another complication. But life doesn't ask what you need. It gives what it wants. It started on a rainy afternoon, the kind of downpour that blurred the world into gray smears. Adam had just picked up Lily from school when he saw her, standing under the cracked awning of the local convenience store, soaked to the bone, hugging a thin hoodie around her shoulders. She looked barely 20, with a backpack at her feet and eyes that darted from passing cars to the puddles gathering at the curb. Lily was the first to speak. "Daddy, she looks cold." Adam hesitated. He knew better than to get involved. But something about her expression, the quiet desperation, the way she didn't beg or cry, just waited, stirred something inside him. Maybe it was because she reminded him of his wife once upon a time. Maybe it was because he knew what it felt like to lose everything. He pulled the car to the curb. "Hey!" he called through the rain, rolling down the window. "You need a ride somewhere?" She blinked, as if surprised anyone had noticed her. "I'm okay," she said quickly. "Just trying to find a place to stay." Adam looked at Lily, then back at the girl. He didn't know her, but he knew the look of someone who was down on their luck. He'd worn it himself too many times. "My name's Adam," he said. "This is my daughter Lily. We've got a couch and dinner in the crockpot. You're welcome to warm up, at least." She hesitated, then nodded. "I'm June," she said quietly. "Thanks. I won't be a bother." That was the beginning. Body, the integration. At first, June kept to herself. She was polite, quiet, and grateful. Always helping with the dishes, folding laundry without being asked, and offering to watch Lily while Adam worked. She said she was between jobs, that she just aged out of the foster system and had nowhere else to go. Adam didn't ask too many questions. He didn't want to make her uncomfortable. And honestly, it was nice to have someone else in the house. Lily had taken to her almost instantly, often laughing in ways Adam hadn't heard since before the funeral. Within a week, June had her own drawer in the bathroom. Within a month, she was sleeping in the guest room instead of the couch. Adam told himself it was temporary, just until she got back on her feet. But little things began to shift. June started making suggestions, soft at first. Maybe Lily didn't need to go to that expensive after-school program. Maybe Adam should stop giving discounts at the garage. They needed every dollar. Maybe he should consider renting out part of the house to ease the financial burden. She always phrased it as concern. "I just want what's best for you too," she'd say, offering a warm smile that masked the cool calculation behind her eyes. Adam appreciated her help, truly, but something about the way she moved through the house began to feel entitled, as if it were hers. She started answering the door when clients came to the garage. She ordered groceries on his card without asking. She even corrected Lily's homework one night and scolded her for being careless. That night, Adam noticed Lily sitting alone in her room, quiet and withdrawn. Body, the shift. Then came the incident with the safe. Adam kept a small safe tucked away in his bedroom closet. Nothing major, just some emergency cash, documents, and a locket his wife used to wear. One evening, after a long day at work, he opened it and found the cash was missing. Gone. At first, he thought he'd miscounted. Maybe he'd used some and forgotten. But the feeling in his gut told him otherwise. He didn't confront June right away. He wanted to believe the best in her. Maybe he was being paranoid. But then the neighbors started asking questions. "Hey, that girl staying with you?" One of them said. "Is she your niece or something?" "No," Adam replied carefully. "Just helping her out for a while." "Well," the neighbor shrugged. "Just saying. Saw her at the pawn shop last week. Looked like she was trading in jewelry." Adam froze. Jewelry? He raced home, heart pounding, and went straight to the safe. The locket, his wife's locket, was gone. He confronted June that night. She didn't deny it. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She just smiled. "You said I could stay," she said. "That meant this was my home too." Adam's voice trembled. "That was my wife's. You had no right. You have no idea how lucky you are," June replied, her tone flat. "Most people don't get second chances. You did. You got to rebuild. I never had anything to begin with." Body, the breaking point. Adam asked her to leave. She refused. She claimed squatters' rights, some vague legal knowledge she must have Googled. She said if he forced her out, she'd call the cops and tell them he'd been inappropriate, that he'd made advances, that he had a temper. She'd studied him. She knew his vulnerabilities, his grief, his guilt, his fear of losing Lily. And she knew exactly how to exploit them. He didn't sleep that night. He sat in the garage, shaking with anger and fear, wondering how a simple act of kindness had brought this nightmare into his home. But he wasn't going to give up. Not this time. Not again. Adam began to plan. He started keeping a journal, documenting everything. Every transaction. Every lie. Every odd behavior. He set up small cameras, nothing fancy, just enough to keep an eye on what she was doing. If she was going to turn this into a game of manipulation, he was going to play smart. He just didn't know how dangerous she could become. Because June had a past. One he hadn't uncovered yet. And it was darker than he could have ever imagined. What happens when the person you welcomed into your home starts tearing it apart from the inside? Adam had offered June shelter, safety, even trust. But now that trust was unraveling, and June? She wasn't who she claimed to be. Secrets were starting to surface. And soon, the quiet man who gave her everything would take it all back. Body, the search for truth. Adam wasn't a man who liked confrontation, but he wasn't naive anymore either. He'd spent the last week pretending everything was fine. He smiled when June walked into the kitchen. He nodded politely when she offered to pick Lily up from school. He even complimented the dinner she made, though it turned his stomach to eat it. But behind the mask of calm, he was digging. He started by calling in a favor from an old high school friend who worked for the sheriff's department. Nothing official, just curiosity, he claimed. He gave her June's name and the few details she'd offered. A day later, the call came. Her name wasn't June. At least, not legally. The person she claimed to be didn't exist in any public records. Not in that age range, not with that background. No school, no birth certificate. Nothing. Whoever this girl was, she'd made herself invisible. Adam's hands trembled as he hung up the phone. He looked toward the hallway, where June's laughter drifted from the living room as she played a board game with Lily. It sounded normal. It sounded happy. It wasn't. It was staged. He knew now. She had an agenda. Body, the first sign of fear. That night, after Lily had gone to bed, Adam tried to have a conversation. Calm, measured, non-threatening. "Where exactly did you say you were from again?" he asked gently, stirring his coffee. June's eyes flickered up from her phone. Her expression didn't change, but her tone tightened ever so slightly. "Why? You forget already? Just trying to understand you better," he said. "You know, if I'm helping you, I want to know where you're coming from." She stared at him for a long second, then smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I think you already know enough." And just like that, she got up and walked down the hallway. Her bedroom door clicked shut behind her. That was the moment Adam felt the air shift in the house. The balance had changed. Before, she was pretending to be grateful. Now, she wasn't pretending at all. She wasn't grateful. She was entitled. Body, the escalation. 2 days later, Adam found Lily crying in the bathroom. Her small hands trembled as she clutched her favorite drawing, a crumpled mess of torn paper. She said it was ugly, Lily sobbed. She said, I'll never be good at art. Adam's blood turned to ice. He knelt beside her, wrapping her in his arms. That's not true. You're amazing. Okay? Don't listen to anything she says. He stayed with her until she calmed down. Then he stood up and walked to June's room. He didn't knock. Hey, he said, voice low and sharp. You don't talk to my daughter like that, ever. June was sitting cross-legged on the bed, scrolling through her phone. She needs to toughen up, she said flatly. You baby her too much. That's why she's so weak. Adam's jaw clenched. Get out of my house. She didn't flinch, didn't raise her voice. Instead, she looked him straight in the eyes and said, try it. See what happens. And in that moment, Adam understood. He wasn't dealing with a lost soul anymore. He was dealing with a predator. Body, the investigation deepens. With every day that passed, June grew bolder. She began locking the door to the guest room. She hid her phone like it was state property. Sometimes, Adam heard her on late-night calls, whispers, laughs, names he didn't recognize. The tension in the house grew unbearable. He had to act before things got worse. He installed a camera in the kitchen and one in the hallway, small, discreet, motion-activated. He wasn't trying to invade privacy. He just needed evidence. Proof. A week later, he got it. He was reviewing footage on a quiet Sunday morning while Lily was outside playing with chalk on the driveway. At first, it was mundane. June rummaging through the fridge, scrolling on her phone. Then, late one evening, the feed showed her unlocking his bedroom door. She slipped in, looked around, and made a beeline for the closet. Adam felt his stomach drop. She wasn't just stealing. She was looking for something specific. But what? Body, the past revealed. Adam sent a screenshot from the video to his friend at the sheriff's office. He didn't want to press charges yet. He just wanted to know who this woman really was. The next call came 3 days later. She's not just using a fake name, the deputy said. She's changed identities multiple times. Juvenile records are sealed, but from what I can tell, she's been in and out of foster care, psychiatric holds, and had 2 restraining orders filed against her in different states. Adam's throat went dry. She's dangerous? We don't know the extent, but I'd be careful. She's been accused of manipulation and coercion. One guy she lived with ended up in serious financial trouble. Another was under investigation for fraud until he vanished. Adam gripped the edge of the kitchen counter. He looked toward the living room, where June now sat on the couch, smiling sweetly, watching a sitcom, laughing like she didn't have a care in the world. But he knew the truth now. He knew who she was. And more importantly, he knew what he had to do. That night, Adam sat at the edge of his bed, the glow of the monitor washing over his face. He replayed the footage, documenting each moment. Every time she touched his things, entered his room, lied to his daughter. He was building a case, not for revenge but for justice. And June? She had no idea that her carefully woven web was starting to tear at the seams. But the moment of reckoning was coming. She thought she'd found her next victim. What she didn't realize was that he was setting a trap. She thought he'd stay quiet, that he'd keep pretending everything was fine. But what June didn't know was that Adam had stopped being afraid and started gathering evidence. Every lie, every threat, every manipulation. Now the trap was set, and all that was left was to wait. Body building the case. Adam had always been a patient man, maybe too patient. But now that patience was his greatest weapon. He spent his nights reviewing camera footage, piecing together her movements like a detective studying a suspect. Every file she borrowed, every dollar that disappeared, every whispered phone call after midnight. It was all logged, time-stamped, backed up. He started acting differently around her. Less confrontational, more agreeable. He smiled more, thanked her for dinner, even left his bedroom door ajar. An invitation, a test. And she took the bait. 2 nights later, she went in again. This time, she didn't just take money. She went through his emails on his open laptop. She copied down something. Adam watched it all from the garage monitor. She wasn't just stealing. She was planning something. He had to accelerate the timeline. Body, a dangerous discovery. A week later, while June was out at the grocery store, Adam took a chance. He opened the door to her room. He felt like he was invading, but something told him the answers he needed were in there. At first glance, everything seemed normal. Folded clothes, cheap makeup, a few books. But tucked in the bottom drawer of her dresser was a worn leather folder. Inside, old hospital discharge papers, a restraining order from Oregon, and a half-burned photo of a man. His face torn down the middle. One document stopped Adam cold. Printed email thread. From his email account to a local real estate agent, requesting information about selling his house. Adam sat down hard on the edge of her bed. His hands trembled as he scanned the forged responses. She was pretending to be him, and she was trying to sell his house out from under him. She wasn't just a manipulator. She was a con artist. Body, the confrontation nearly comes. That night, Adam couldn't sleep. He checked the locks, then checked them again. He sat in the hallway for hours, just outside Lily's room, listening for the faintest sound. What if June got desperate? What if she realized he knew? The next morning, he made a call to his friend in the sheriff's department. "I have enough now," he said. "I have footage. I have documents. I'm ready." His friend agreed to send a deputy over the next day to take a formal statement. But he warned Adam to stay calm. Don't provoke her. Don't accuse her. Just wait. But that was easier said than done. Because that evening, June crossed a line Adam couldn't ignore. Body, the breaking point. Lily had come home from school upset. Again. When Adam asked what happened, she hesitated. "June said you're going to send me away," she whispered. "She said you don't want me anymore." Adam's world stopped spinning. "What?" he asked, kneeling in front of her. "Who told you that?" "She said if I don't behave, you'll leave me like Mommy did." It was a lie so cruel, so venomous, that Adam felt the rage rise up in his throat like fire. He stood up and stormed into the kitchen. June was there, sipping coffee like she owned the house. "What did you say to my daughter?" he asked, his voice low and trembling. June didn't even blink. "I told her the truth. You're unstable. You can barely take care of yourself, let alone a kid." Adam stepped forward. "You're done here. Tomorrow morning, you're leaving." She set the mug down slowly. "No, I'm not." Her eyes were cold, flat, calculating. "You try to kick me out and I'll say you hit me, that you touched me, that you threatened to kill me in front of your daughter. Who do you think they'll believe? A grieving man barely holding it together? Or a scared young girl trying to survive?" Adam didn't say a word. He just walked away. But inside, he was done playing her game. Because this time, the cameras were rolling. And every word she just said had been recorded. Body, the final setup. The next morning, Adam sent a copy of the footage to the sheriff's office. Within an hour, he got the call. "They'll be there by 4 p.m., his friend said. "Don't let her leave the house." Adam didn't plan to. He picked Lily up from school early and took her to stay with a neighbor for the afternoon. Then he came home and waited. June was in her room, humming to herself, packing something. Maybe she sensed the shift in the air. Maybe she knew her time was running out. At 3:42 p.m., the sheriff's car pulled up. Adam opened the door slowly, his heart pounding in his ears. "Is she home?" the deputy asked. "She's in the guest room," Adam said. "But be careful. She's not who she says she is." The door creaked open. June turned around slowly, her smile already gone. She didn't speak. She didn't fight. She just stared as the deputy stepped inside and said, "Ma'am, we need to ask you a few questions." And as they led her out the front door, her expression never changed. But as she passed Adam, she leaned in close and whispered, "This isn't over." Adam watched the car disappear down the street. He didn't know what the next chapter held. But he did know this. He had protected his daughter. And he had taken back his home. But the storm that had passed through their lives may have left more behind than either of them could see. Because monsters don't always come with knives. Sometimes they wear borrowed smiles. It was supposed to be over. June was gone, arrested, removed from their lives. But when someone makes a career out of deceit, when lies are their currency, getting caught isn't always the end. For Adam and Lily, the real nightmare was just beginning. Because June had left behind more than just fear. She left behind a mess and a warning. Body, a haunting silence. The house felt different now. Quieter, yes, but also heavier. The first few days after June's arrest were surreal. Lily seemed lighter, happier even, but Adam couldn't relax. Not really. He walked through the halls like the walls were still listening. He checked the locks twice before bed. He left a light on in the living room every night. The relief was real, but so was the unease. The guest room remained untouched. Door closed, curtains drawn. He couldn't bring himself to go in. But that wouldn't last long. A few days later, the sheriff called. "She's lawyered up," he said. "Won't say much, but she's not denying the footage. She knows we've got her." Adam exhaled, waiting for the but. "But she's claiming you lured her here under false pretenses. That you manipulated her. That she was emotionally unstable and you exploited that." Adam's blood ran cold. "She's flipping the script. She's a professional," the deputy said. "You knew that. This is her pattern." Body, the reputation war. The next hit didn't come through the courts, it came through whispers. Started with a knock on Adam's door. A woman stood there, late 20s, clipboard in hand, polite but wary. "Hi, I'm with Child Protective Services. We received a tip regarding a potential emotional neglect situation involving your daughter." Adam felt the ground tilt beneath him. He kept his voice steady, calm. "That tip wouldn't happen to be anonymous, would it?" She gave a slight, practiced smile. "We can't confirm that. We're just doing a standard wellness check." Lily was in her room coloring. She greeted the woman cheerfully, oblivious to the storm swirling outside her door. The visit went smoothly. No red flags. No follow-up required. But Adam knew. It was June. Even behind bars, she was still trying to destroy him. She couldn't break him physically. So now she was coming after his name. Body, unearthing the past. Adam finally opened the door to the guest room. The air was stale. The bed unmade. The closet still full. He began to sort through what she'd left behind. Boxes, scraps of paper, notebooks. One journal stood out. It was plain, leather-bound, its spine cracked and worn. He flipped it open to find frantic handwriting. Scattered thoughts, dates, places, fragments of memories, and names. Men's names, cities, snapshots of past cons. John pretended to be a nurse, took his retirement check. Marcus made him think I loved him, got a car and disappeared. Paul accused him of abuse. He paid to make it go away. Adam's stomach turned. She'd done this before, over and over. He took photos of every page, every detail. He wasn't just going to protect his own name, he was going to help stop her cycle. For good. Body, an unexpected visitor. A week later, someone knocked on the door again. Not CPS this time. A man, early 40s, dressed plainly, exhausted eyes. He introduced himself as Andrew. "I heard about what happened," he said, holding a newspaper clipping. "I think she did this to me, too." Adam let him in. They sat at the kitchen table, and for the first time, Adam listened to someone who truly understood. Andrew had met June in Colorado. Different name, same story. She'd moved in with him, sweet-talked her way into his life, then slowly drained his savings. When he confronted her, she vanished. No closure, no justice, just debt. "I blamed myself for years," Andrew said. "Thought I was stupid. But seeing your story, it made me realize she's just that good." They weren't victims. They were survivors of the same predator. Body, the court date looms. The trial was set for the end of the month. Adam was ready. The footage was airtight. The documents she forged were undeniable. But it was still hard. being in the same room as her, watching her sit behind that defense table like she belonged anywhere but a prison cell. She didn't look at him once, but he could feel her presence like smoke in his lungs. When he took the stand, he told the truth, not just about what she did, but how it felt. How it felt to be manipulated. How it felt to watch someone use your kindness as a weapon. He looked directly at the jury when he said, "I didn't bring her into my home because I was stupid. I did it because I believed in second chances. And she turned that into a weapon against my daughter. Against me. That isn't just cruel. It's calculated." He stepped down, feeling like something inside him had finally exhaled. It didn't take long. The jury returned within 2 hours. Guilty, on multiple counts. Fraud, identity theft, attempted real estate scam, endangering a minor. June was sentenced to 5 years. No tears, no remorse, just a cold, blank stare as the gavel fell. Adam didn't smile. He didn't cheer. He just walked out of the courtroom, let the sun hit his face, and knew it was finally over. Or as over as it could be. Because scars like these didn't fade overnight. But healing had begun. Back home, Lily greeted him at the door with a hug that wrapped around his ribs and didn't let go. Her drawing was pinned proudly on the fridge. Her smile was whole again. And for the first time in months, Adam knew something June would never understand. Kindness isn't weakness. It's strength. Real strength. And this time, kindness had won. The trial was over. Justice served. But for Adam and Lily, life wasn't just about what was behind them. It was about what came next. Picking up the pieces. Rebuilding trust. And discovering that sometimes, the end of one story is the beginning of something far more meaningful. Body, the return to normal. The house felt warmer now. The shadows June had cast were still there, but they no longer controlled the light. Adam began to settle into something he hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Lily laughed more. She was sleeping through the night again. Sometimes she would come into the living room just to sit beside him in silence, resting her head on his arm. She never said it, but that closeness said everything. They were healing. One evening, Adam opened the windows for the first time in months. A spring breeze drifted through the kitchen. The house no longer felt like a place of fear. It felt like a home again. Still, healing didn't mean forgetting. Body, lingering shadows. About a week after the verdict, Adam received a letter. No return address. No stamp. Just tucked between the front door and the frame. Inside was a single piece of paper. No greeting. No name. Just a sentence. "You still don't know what I took." It didn't take a detective to guess who had sent it. June. He almost laughed. Almost. But the chill that crept across his skin reminded him. Manipulators don't give up easily. Even behind bars, some of them never stop reaching. He called the sheriff. They confirmed June had no access to male privileges yet, which meant someone had helped her. A friend? An old partner? A new victim? Adam's relief was suddenly cracked open by a new reality. The story wasn't over just because the gavel had fallen. But this time he was prepared. Body, taking back control. That night, Adam made a decision. He launched a blog. It was simple at first, just a few posts about what had happened. Not naming names, not for revenge, but for awareness. He called it The Kindness Trap. He told his story honestly, rawly, and something unexpected happened. Messages poured in. Other men, single dads, even women, people who had been used, deceived, emotionally manipulated by someone they had let into their lives. Victims who had felt too ashamed to speak. Adam realized something June had never counted on. Kindness, when wounded, can retreat. But when it rises again, it becomes powerful, protective, unbreakable. His blog grew fast. He was invited on podcasts, asked to write an op-ed. Even a documentary filmmaker reached out. But the most meaningful thing? One message from a woman who said, "Because of your story, I got out. I saw the signs. I left before it was too late." And that made every sleepless night worth it. Body, a full circle moment. Summer arrived. The air buzzed with new life. Adam took Lily to the park where he used to bring her when she was a toddler. She ran through the grass, free and unburdened. A butterfly landed on her outstretched hand, and she beamed. He sat on the bench nearby, watching, reflecting. They had come so far. He thought about how close he'd been to losing it all, not to violence or force, but to slow, invisible manipulation. The kind that wears you down, piece by piece. And he thought about how the world doesn't warn you about people like June. People who wear masks not to hide, but to blend. That's why he kept writing, kept sharing. Not out of anger, but to light a path for someone else. The day the 5-year sentence was handed down, Adam thought he'd feel closure. But now, months later, he realized the real closure hadn't come in a courtroom. It had come through choosing not to live in fear, through reclaiming his space, his peace, his voice, and most of all, through protecting the one thing that mattered more than anything else. Lily. One night, she asked him softly, "Is that lady ever coming back?" He smiled gently and shook his head. "No, sweetie. She's gone." "Good," she whispered. "She didn't belong here." Adam kissed the top of her head. "No, she didn't. But you do. And so do I." Outside, the wind rustled the trees. The house creaked like it was breathing again. Alive. Peace. And as he turned out the lights, Adam knew something powerful. Kindness had once made him vulnerable, but now it made him unstoppable. Because the people who try to exploit love never understand the strength it gives back. And the ones who survive them, they become